Hi everyone, it's me, Lloyd, coming at you from the upper room. I just wanted to profoundly thank those of you who watched my last video on mental health, and I was blown away by the response. There were over 400 comments, so far at least, and so many of you reaching out in different ways, expressing solidarity, expressing empathy and kindness and love, and I really appreciate that. It really means a lot. And I can tell from the response that I've kind of touched a nerve with many of you in the ex-cult community who relate to a lot of what I've been talking about. And I just thought, why not keep talking about it, Because truth is, I'm still struggling a bit, to be honest. And one of the problems I think I'm having, it's like an ongoing problem that I'm grappling with, which again is kind of exacerbated by my cult background, is dealing with meaning, finding meaning in life. Because as Jehovah's Witnesses, we were given a meaning. Our meaning was to serve the organization, to advance God's kingdom, to magnify Jehovah's name, to do basically what we're told. And we were constantly promised this wonderful afterlife in paradise, or in heaven if you happen to be of the anointed. There was always like a carrot dangling on the end of a stick for those of us who were good and who behaved ourselves. But the point is, we had some meaning. There was some kind of objective that we were aiming towards. And the challenge, of course, particularly if you drop out of religion entirely, as I have done, the challenge is finding meaning post-religion, So having embraced my mortality, having embraced the fact that, like everybody else who has ever lived, I am going to die. I have a finite number of spins around the sun. What to do with that time, and is there really even any point in trying to make something of that time if it's all so fleeting? In other words, is there truly relevance to our existence if there is no higher purpose, if there is no elevated objective to our existence? In the past, I think when I took my first steps into atheism, I used to say, well, our purpose can be whatever we want it to be, We can decide for ourselves. We're free now to decide what we want to do with our lives. And I guess that's true, broadly speaking. But for me personally, even though I've said that, and like I said, it's broadly true, it's not very satisfying, We all get to create our own purpose. Fine. Well, that doesn't change the fact that the clock's ticking and we're all racing towards our graves, essentially. And here's what I really grapple with: the fact that life is disproportionately dull, boring, or problematic. So for me, hopefully it's better for most of you watching this, but for me at least, I find that life is like an ocean of either misery or boredom, mostly boredom, or just duty, chasing after things that we need to do. And then there are just these islands in the ocean of something else, which is joy, which is happiness and feelings of elation and satisfaction and feeling like we're on top of things. But they're just islands. That there's disproportionately something other than happiness and joy in my life. And I think that's broadly true for most people. And how do we address that? What do we do about that? Wouldn't it be lovely if it were the other way round, Why can't it be the other way round, Why can't we have oceans of satisfaction, joy, not feeling rubbish, and just these islands of despair, misery, and boredom? Why does it have to be the way it is? That's one of the things that frustrates me. And the way I describe it when I'm talking to my friends about this is, for me, life doesn't quite feel real. My intuition steers me towards what's called the simulation theory, which is that everything is just a simulation and nothing's real. And one of the reasons why I kind of lean towards that, even though it's not something I would ever be dogmatic about or preach to people about, it's just an intuition. It's nothing I can prove. But something that kind of steers me in that direction is how conveniently I'm always kept dangling, in nearly all areas of life, whether it's financially, whether it's, in my social life, in my dating life. There's always this kind of hope that things can be better, but I never quite get there. I don't succumb to catastrophe. I don't fall into the abyss. I never do that for some reason. I'm never destitute. I'm never broken and on the street and left with nothing. But at the same time, I'm never for some reason allowed to just soar and for just everything to go right. I'm always kept suspended in this state of just about ticking by and constantly having to chase things in order to almost justify my existence, in order to fulfill my duties and my obligations as a father, mostly. So that's kind of one of the big frustrations for me. And of course, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, I didn't have to really think about this too much, because this was all just part of a process leading up towards this wonderful dawn in the future when everything would be bright and cheerful and happy and there would be nothing to worry about. So you go through all of the pain and the struggle now, knowing that there's going to be a payoff. Only when you get rid of religion, there is no payoff. It's just the pain and the struggle, And like I said, the islands of joy and happiness and contentment. But when those things happen, that they're just fleeting. And sometimes a really nice thing will happen, and because I'm so attuned to everything just falling apart the moment I'm starting to enjoy something or some connection that I make with someone, it almost ruins it, because I'm like, okay, when's this all gonna fall apart, you know? How long have I got? That for me is one of the really big frustrations, to be honest, of life in general, is finding meaning and purpose. Because if you were to ask me that question now, what is the purpose of life? I would just say it's to be happy, and it's to find joy. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. As Jehovah's Witnesses, we were told that that was a terrible thing. That was hedonism, living for joy and living to be happy. Well, why not, would be my question. Why not be happy in the short period of time that we exist, in again, those short number of spins around the sun? Our planet's hurtling through space. The sun's hurtling through space, and our planet is hurtling around the sun like that. And as our planet's hurtling around the sun, it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year. And before you know it, all of your years are spent. Why not enjoy them? Why can't joy and happiness in and of itself be a reason for existence? For me, it's like life is a game. I alluded to the simulation theory. That's something that I have thought about a lot, and I continue to think about it. But I guess for me, the question is whether life is real or not. Is there enough joy to keep going? Can I find enough joy and happiness, even if it is just islands that I come across? Is there enough joy and happiness to keep going? And as long as the answer is yes, then I'll keep going. I'm going to keep giving it a go. Why not, you know? And so far, yeah, I'm definitely feeling like there is joy to be had, there is happiness to be had, for me, mainly from my two girls. They are a reliable source of joy and happiness for me. Yes, there are times when it can be stressful being a parent, and when they're both screaming or fighting each other or whatever. It can be difficult. It can be challenging, you know, because I quite like my peace. I'm 46 years old, and I quite like to just have some peace and quiet sometimes. And when there is just this house filled with screaming and them chasing each other around and sometimes even hitting each other, which isn't good. Sometimes it's really hard to keep it together. But I'm learning even in those moments to think, well, I wouldn't have it any other way. I have these two beautiful little humans with me now, and they're with me in my house. And I get to enjoy being with them for a couple of days. So, yeah, they're everything, and they are the reason why it's a yes when it comes to, do I play the game? Do I go ahead and play this game called life, even though it seems weirdly rigged towards keeping me in a perpetual state of anxiety, of uncertainty, of chasing after things, almost as though there's some higher intelligence or some group of higher intelligences who get some kind of sadistic pleasure out of watching humans struggle, you know? Yeah, you just keep going, I guess, knowing that no matter how many lows there are in life, inevitably, at some point there has to be a high. At some point, the misery and the boredom and the despair need to give way to a moment, even if it's only fleeting, of things going right, of something going right, of the universe smiling on you and making you feel good. And what I've started doing as well is keeping a journal. I'm not really the journaling type, even though I'm a writer. I have 2 books on Amazon. You would think that writing would come naturally to me, but journaling is something that I've tended to avoid over the years. Apart from anything, I find it something that's like a commitment that I have to keep up with, and I don't like being bound to something like a little book that I have to write things down in. But I've just started doing it over like the last 2 or 3 days, and it's surprising how cathartic it is to actually write things down that I'm feeling. And I'm following this formula that was recommended. I saw it on an Instagram reel, of writing down each day what's gone right, what's given me energy during the day, what's taken away from my energy, and what have I learned. So just those 3 things. I call them A, B, and C. So for each day I write A, B, C. And so far, like I said, it's extremely cathartic. It's very rewarding to just put things down, and it's almost like I'm downloading the frustrations in my mind into something tangible that I can look back on at a later point, or not look back on. At least I'm putting it out there, kind of into the universe, almost like a form of praying, but I'm just praying to a piece of paper, or I'm praying to myself. So I'll let you know how that goes, but I just wanted to drop in and give you all an update that I'm okay, sort of. I'm still very sad, but I'm extremely heartened by all of the concern and all of the love and the empathy that many of you have shown. And I think I'm going to carry on, not every video, but every now and then, just giving you these updates, just letting you know what's going on in my head. Because why not, you know? If it makes me happy, if I enjoy it, if I enjoy talking to the universe and expressing what's in my mind, on my mind, to total strangers, and if it makes you, if it gives you something that you can relate to, then why not? So I'll keep these videos coming. I need to wrap up because my phone gimbal is dying, the battery light's flashing, and it keeps breaking down. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more. And as always, thank you for watching.